Hey, good morning, Renee. How are you? You're off site today. How's that?
I am off-site today. Yes, I might be a little bit remote.
There you go. Celebrating a birthday party for somebody. That's awesome. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Lots of turmoil in Canada. Lots of people kind of like losing their minds and all kinds of stuff. Lots of turmoil. Trump acting like the big bully he is, and then, but a lot of different voices out of Canada. But we did get an 11th hour deal, which is typical. I was talking to Ian. I said typically that's what happens in like union type negotiations. You put a lot of pressure on, and then you force a deal to 11th hour.
Absolutely. And what we saw from the politicians was a lot of jockeying, a lot of positioning, a lot of making sure that they knew that their, constituents were hearing them, and that part of the whole aspect of this thing has been just ridiculous. Last night at dinner it was interesting because everyone is bemoaning the fact that we've got these tariffs. I'm like, oh, no, 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 not anymore. Breaking news. 4 hours ago they were removed for the next 30 days. And I think that what we're going to see is a lot of people get really fatigued. They're going to get fatigued about the conversation. They're going to get fatigued about the uncertainty, and that's my biggest concern is that we really don't have a voice of hope in all of this, other than, and I shudder to say it because I think that all of the listeners are going to think that I'm just in only one camp, but Pierre Poilievre has had the only message of hope so far, and that was really loud and clear as he was giving his speech the other night.
Yeah, and he had some steps too. Like this is what we do from here, which is more than the other ones where like it seemed reaction, especially David Eby about taking, which I found completely puzzling, taking out the Republican booze off the shelves, and it just seems so COVID era, right? When we react like a political reaction as opposed to something that has substance.
It's ideological, right? Basically what he's signaling is that, if you believe one way, you should be punished. And if you believe another way, you shouldn't be. If he was really concerned about the British Columbian people, he would remove all of the wine from California, Oregon, and Washington, because that would really help BC. That would help our wineries.
Yeah.
Would really and would really go a long ways. Instead, he's signaling again, we're gonna punish those that believe a certain way, and that's what he's been doing the last 7 years of the NDP government.
Yeah, because I would like to remind him that the White House is ruled by a Republican, Trump, the Senate by Republicans, and the Congress by Republicans. So there is one America, and they are working on their list of what they say. I mean, I liken it to, I've talked to some people about like a hockey team. Like when you have like a Marty McSorley on the other team, and most people absolutely hate Marty McSorley, but their team loves him, right? Because he's their enforcer, and like he is like the big bully in the world right now.
He is the biggest bully that we've seen in a very long time. I want to remind all of those who listen, this is this is one politician. This is one leader. This is not all of the American people. This is not all of the United States. Right now, he is trying to protect Americans. Yes, he's their bully. Yes, but that can change, and that can change in 4 years. And so the animosity that I've been seeing, whether it's the booing at the games, or the rhetoric that was all over social media yesterday, this is not about Americans. This is just about the American president right now, and it really is about their government. And we need to be mad at who we should be mad at, which is our Canadian politicians have not prepared us to be decoupled from the United States as our really our largest and only trade partner.
And one thing for sure, though, I mean, one of the biggest things that we've heard complaints about on both sides of the borders is the borders, right? And the Biden-Harris administration, that was the big thing. That was a big election issue, the border, and same with Canada. It's a big issue, the drug crisis and all that. To be fair to him, he's got more done on the border than they've done in the past 4 years altogether. They have now 10,000 Mexican troops on the border. They have the U.S. military on the border. They have their own border patrol on the border. And we've committed to troops, well, I don't know, troops, but we've committed to people on the border. And Danielle Smith her proposal of a border czar got that as well. So I think Danielle Smith deserves a ton of credit for being the calm voice in all of this nonsense, because Doug Ford was kind of like just going off, and everybody else was just saying things. And
Agreed. Agreed. She has gotten more done with Trump. And as we see, it's through negotiation. She went down there, she talked to him, she has been in negotiations from the get go. And, rather than Trudeau, I mean, when the press secretary of the White House literally says, well, it would do well for Trudeau to have a conversation with Trump, like that's a borderline ridiculous that we're being called out by a press secretary. But truly, Danielle Smith was there at the table the entire time, and we see her initiatives coming to action.
yeah, I think what she was trying to say too is like stop the nonsense in the media and just have a conversation before you make this really bad for Canadians and Americans, because it would have hurt. There's no denying it would have hurt Canada worse than America for sure, but it would have hurt both sides.
And that's what we saw. We saw the politicians riling up the people, and that's not the way to do this. That is not how we actually govern. And instead, what we should be doing is calling Parliament back. We should be calling all of the legislative assemblies back. And yet we're still sitting ducks with Eby doing his red state edicts and Trudeau doing press conferences rather than actually being in the House and getting together all of the elected officials.
Yeah, and I think like again the calm voice and all this, and then she was like by a lot of the media outlets painting her as a traitor and stuff like that. But she was the calm voice, and it was the calm voice that won the day.
And if she hadn't done that, let's just look at that. You look at the equalization payments that Alberta does every single year, and has done since they were put in place. You look at how many hundreds of billions of dollars they have transferred to the other provinces across Canada. It's she wasn't just protecting Alberta, she was protecting the rest of Canada. But I think that the message that the rest of Canada is finally starting to understand is that if we just traded with each other and stopped importing and exporting the way that we do, we would actually be as far ahead as if we were trading to the US. I mean, finally, we are starting to see that message come through. And Trevor Tome, was out again, saying that exact thing. $160 billion is lost every single year because we don't trade with our provincial partners.
Yeah,
Yeah,
meaning
meaning
talk
talk
to us
to us
about
about
all
all
the
the
cancer
council
projects.
projects.
And you were there in government when like the Kitimat uh, one was canceled, uh, and the Energy East one. Even now they're saying they were going to do these things, and now even the premier of Quebec is just like, well, it's not politically acceptable right now. So it's just. I'd like to see what EB's plans are going forward, because there's a bunch of stuff that was canceled or put off, like including our forestry sector. With Canfor pulling out and all that, and our forestry is in shambles. And that was one of the biggest targets that would hurt BC was our softwood lumber industry.
Absolutely. And we've had tariffs. EB did not negotiate those tariffs away. We've had the softwood lumber tariffs the entire time the NDP have been in government. And really it was Christy Clark, that negotiated the last tariffs away. So we have tariffs already in place that are hurting our industry and that are causing our companies to go south. Our Canfors and our Tolcos, they go down to the south of the border and literally spend billions of dollars instituting new mills and making sure that they have lumber supply for the U.S. This is not going to go away. And what I hope we all heard in this is that we have to do a better job of trade. And the last prime minister that did a phenomenal job of our trade agreements was Harper. And he had 123 trade agreements signed in his 6 years as prime minister. That was phenomenal. Instead, we've had a prime minister who is literally offended the world leaders that we could be trading with and not made any efforts whatsoever towards establishing new trade partnerships.
Hopefully this is a wake-up call, because I'm just going to read you a small list, and I know you were in government for some of these. The Northern Gateway Pipeline we just talked about, 2016, initially approved in 2014, project later rejected by the Liberal government in 2019. 16, including a moratorium on crude oil tankers in the British Columbia's northern coast. So that takes care. Energy East Pipeline, 2017, the Trans-Canada now canceled this project in 2017, citing market conditions, regulatory challenges. Again, the Liberal government's introduction of more stringent environmental stuff. The Keystone XL pipeline that was canceled by Biden. The Teck Resources withdrew its Frontier Oil Sands project in 2020 after investing of $1.5 billion in that development. And the proposed project was a $20 billion project, and they cited again the Liberal government as a reason for them canceling that project. And that was just recently too that was canceled in February of 2020. So they talk about all ways that we need to get different markets, but all these things have stopped us from accessing different markets.
We will not be able to move forward until we have a political environment that actually says that we're open for business. Our natural resource sector should be firing on all cylinders, and instead we are dead in the water with regulations, environmental, bureaucracy that literally makes it impossible for those large companies to deliver to the market at a price point that they would be able to actually, have a margin. So we have to do better. We have to do more. And right now, there is no reason that we should be as dead in the water as we are. And there's no reason that Trump should have any ability to bully us. We should have LNG going out to Germany, to Japan, and we don't. We should have, our oil and gas going east and west and north and south, and we do not. Instead, we have one trade partner that we can get it to, and that's the US. That's why we sell it at such a discount, because we have one person, one party, one entity that we can actually sell to. And the Quebec premier actually saying that we should, we're not going to be doing an Energy East pipeline. It's ridiculous. The amount of Saudi Arabian, tankers coming into the Saint Laurent, River to deliver their oil is just, it's ridiculous that we would favor Saudi Arabia over our own Canadian gas
And
and oil. And this is where we need a stronger prime minister. This is where we need to have a prime minister that says, actually, this pipeline is going through, and here's why, and here's how we're going to make it happen.
And it's not just our oil and gas sector and LNG, it's also the mining sector. I've got here a 2022 report, 9 mining projects were canceled that valued at $13 billion, put on hold or canceled. 2023 report, 15 mining projects valued at $10.4 billion, put on hold, canceled, suspended. Accumulated a $23.4 billion cancellation. And these are just because they can't get stuff done in Canada. One of the things that Trump is doing is he's got a to-do list, and it seems like he's ticking 5-6 things off a day. And the only person I've heard in Canada talk about a to-do list are 2 people, and that's Pierre Poilievre, which came up with a list of things that we need to do in Canada. And then the same thing as Danielle Smith, whereas a lot of the other politicians are still talking about, virtue signaling over taking, Canadian liquor or American liquor off shelves, or canceling trips. I've seen, how many media journalists have you seen saying they've canceled their trips to the United States and stuff like that because it was just the funny thing to do. Another thing though, Karina Gold just put out a piece and said now is the time that we need to do a charm tour in the United States to charm the Americans. I was just like, what are we talking about?
Karina Gold is a little bit misled. I think she's using the race for the Liberal leadership as a little bit of a platform for her to gain some notoriety. I'm not sure exactly what she's trying to do there. It certainly is not what I would recommend. And you're right. We need a game plan. You're absolutely right. Trump came in, and this is not the last 4 years. This is, or his first 4 years, where he was kind of flat-footed and took a little bit to get away. This is a whole new day. He's been prepping for this for the last year, and we know that he's been getting ready. That he's been getting all of his ducks in a row and people lined up. So we know that he's coming in with a very strong agenda, and he's got 18 months to enact it before the midterms, and he's going to do it. We need that level of strength right now, and we are a lame duck government that he is toying with like a cat with a mouse.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Do you ever look at poly markets, the betting markets
No.
on things. Like, so there, if you go on there, there's actually like there's a lot of stuff on Canada too, and the poly markets right now have Mark Carney winning the race with like a 95% edge, and Freeland with I think like a 4.3% chance, and the rest of them don't even show up in there really. Um, what I find interesting is Mark Carney is actually representing Canada on CNN, and they don't interview Pierre Poilievre, which is the leader of the actual opposition. They're interviewing Mark Carney on CNN, and that like is he already representing Canada on the world stage without getting one single vote?
Yes, that is the unfortunate part of this. I have been disgusted. I have been annoyed. I cannot believe how much airtime the mainstream media is giving him right now, both sides of the border. He is speaking, and I mean, politically, as when you're running for leadership, you speak as if you are the leader. You speak as if you are the prime minister or the premier. So he's doing what he should be doing from a political standpoint, but the amount of airtime that they are giving him is absolutely ridiculous. And it was good to see that on social media, it's almost the reverse. Very few people are talking about Carney, and a lot of people are actually looking at Danielle Smith as well as Pierre Poilievre as the ones who actually have plans moving forward and should be covered in the way that they're being covered on social media.
Yeah, other liberal leader hopefuls like Ruby Dalla and Karina Gold aren't getting a lot of airtime even in their things. And Ruby Dalla is I think she's the king of the memes, the Canadian or queen of the memes. She's like Canada's Elon Musk. She's putting out meme after meme on Mark Carney, calling him Justin Trudeau 2.0. But I would advise Canadians to go to Mark Carney's website and read his platform. The only thing on there right now is climate, and it talks about mandates as well, which are basically tariffs, where he would mandate companies and have an equalization tax on them if they try to come into Canada and sell their goods if they don't have a climate plan.
And that is a tariff. It is an environment tariff. It's a carbon tax. It's a carbon tariff. This is what his agenda is. It has been. It's been his agenda as the governor of the Bank of Canada. It's been his agenda into other roles. It's what you see the Bank of England so upset about, that he was imposing this net zero agenda, and it really impacted harm upon them. I can't say this enough. Like, he is not just Trudeau 2.0. He is a climate change activist, and is going to do so using the economy, and that's a very scary place. We've seen what just in BC, what the Clean BC plan does to our economy. It grinds it to a halt. It's why BC was number one in Canada and is now dead last. We have taken over dead last in terms of our economic output, and largely because we have the largest and most oppressive bureaucracy when it comes to our climate action plan, which is called Clean BC. So and you haven't heard EB talk a whole lot about Clean BC right now, but that agenda is still there, and we are definitely being harmed by it. And Carney's going to do the same, just as Trudeau has done.
Yeah, we bought some time, and speaking of time, we only have a couple minutes left here. Any closing thoughts? And we'll probably go into this way more detail next week, because this will be developing as we move along. Like, it's not over, but we bought some time. I think we need to pressure our governments to make sure we have a plan going forward.
So I want to end with this. One of my sons was talking to me about Trump. He loves following all the politics, etc. And he's like, I just don't understand why our response to a bully is to like try and overpower. He said, because when we were on the playground, when we would respond to a bully, we would just agree with them. You're dumb. You're right. I am. Even if it wasn't true, but you don't respond to bullies with strength. You respond to a bully with actually with more smarts than that, and with an ability to outmaneuver them and to make them look foolish. And I think we need a clearer, stronger, and more of an ability to negotiate right now, and that is just not happening with our current government. And so my big push is that we should not be up in arms, mad at Americans. We should be up in arms, mad at our politicians for getting us into a position that we could be so easily bullied, and also mad at our politicians that they're not calling back Parliament to actually get us a government that can work against what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think Canadians need to realize that our wealth is beneath our feet. It's in our land, and we need a government that will use that. And the United States, yesterday, he announced a sovereign wealth fund. Norway has a sovereign wealth fund that is equal to about $361,000 per person. They also have one of the greenest climates, but they use their oil and gas to build into their sovereign wealth fund to the betterment of their citizens, and we could be doing much the same because we're way richer than Norway as far as resources go. But again, Canadians have to realize the wealth is beneath our feet, and that we need to have governments that are going to utilize that wealth to the betterment of all Canadians. We can have way more services and a lesser tax burden.
Absolutely, and a greener environment. Absolutely, 100%. Thanks for
Well,
having me this week, Jim.
you bet. You go enjoy the day, and we'll see you next week here in studio. And
Absolutely.
we do thank you for watching Kelowna Now.